So today we're going to be talking about the structure of DNA and RNA. So let's start off with where are these found? So DNA is found in the nucleus of the cell and it can't leave the nucleus. And we'll talk about that later about how RNA can leave the nucleus, but it's made there, but that's a topic for another time. But it's important to know that DNA is in the nucleus. So it condenses in the nucleus because it's an extremely long strand. So for it to fit in the small nucleus of a cell, it needs to be rolled up really tightly, which as we know are formed in little chromosomes like this, and they're wrapped around histones like that. So here's a little example that I like to draw. So this is the DNA strand, and in the middle we find a histone protein. So this is a histone protein. And this is the DNA strand. So we do this to coil and condense the DNA to fit in the nucleus of the cell. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the structure of DNA. DNA is made up of three main components. Oh, let's do this in blue. Three main components. Oh, also DNA is going to be in blue and RNA is going to be in red because that's how I feel about them. So DNA, first let's talk about this structure. This is a pentose sugar. In DNA, which stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. Deoxyribose nucleic acid. So deoxyribose is the name of this sugar. So that's why it's called that. So, and the pentose sugar has an O, has a C, and here's another CH2. But anyways, those are just the C's and the O's, which you should know. But let's leave this diagram a little simpler right now. Okay, so yeah, we have this pentose sugar, and that's what you need to know. It's mainly a sugar. And off to the side here, on the 1, 2, 3, 4th sugar, we have a P, which is the phosphate group. So that's the phosphate group. And off to here with the first carbon, we have a, let's connect that here. We have a nitrogenous base. So we'll get into that a little later. Okay, so yeah, this is the structure of a DNA. This is one. So this is one piece called a nucleic acid. So we have the whole strand of DNA, right? One little one of these here, this is our little phosphate and our little this. So that's here. Well, let me rephrase that. There. So there one will be here, one little deoxyribose, then our phosphate and our base. And this is one strand, keep in mind. And this will be the 5' to 3' strand. Which we'll get into later too. So this is a nucleic acid. This is what this strand is made up of. So the DNA strand in total is kind of the polymer, and the monomer, which makes up that strand, is a nucleic acid, which is just one of these. Only one. Yeah. So let's talk about the bonding that's found in this little nucleic acid. From the phosphate group to the sugar, we have a covalent bond. And over here, between the sugar and the nitrogenous base, we also have a covalent bond. So that's important to note when we talk about the strength of the DNA strand. So yeah, okay, moving on. Now let's talk a little bit about RNA structure. RNA, let me draw it out for you, and you can try to assume the difference between the two. Okay. Okay. This is gonna be our RNA. Doesn't look different at all, does it? No, it doesn't. There's also our nitrogenous base. Here's our phosphate group. Okay, so what's different about RNA? Well, RNA stands for ribose nucleic acid. So the difference is that in DNA, we have an O here. Oh, deoxy. So no, we have an H here. But in RNA, we have an OH here, because here it's deoxy, which means no oxygen. And here it's just ribose with the oxygen. So yeah, that's just important to note, but you don't have to include that in your diagram. Although they still have a pentose, which means it still has 5 carbons, and it still has nitrogenous bases and still has a phosphate group. So that's the only difference, is that the oxygen at the bottom is not there. We'll get into a few other differences later on. Okay, yeah, this is also the monomer of RNA. So, oh, and it also has the same bonding, which is over here, same bonding, over here, same bonding. Both of them are covalent. So, okay, let's get into the nitrogenous bases. So in DNA, a key concept to keep in mind is that there's something called complementary base pairing. So this is just a concept that says that A should join with T, okay, and C should join with G. You've probably heard apples on the tree, cars in the garage. So that's because those two bases go together. Now, moving further into this concept, there are 2 things called purines. Whoa, that is a bad P. There's purines and there's pyrimidines. I'm not sure if that's how you say that word. But purines are A and G, and pyrimidines are C and G. So what differentiates these 2 pyrimidines and purines is that purines are 2-ringed. So basically it means that they look like, they kind of look like this. Something like that. But they're made up of 2. Ignore the shapes, but yeah. They're made up of 2 of these. Meanwhile, pyrimidines are 1-ringed. So purine just means 2 rings, and pyrimidines means 1 ring. So that's just to remember. Yeah, so a key concept in complementary base pairing is that a purine always has to bond with a pyrimidine, but it's specific to A and C. I mean, A and, whoa, I wrote G twice. I'm sorry, C and T. C and T are the pyrimidines. So yeah, A always goes with T, and G always goes with C. So it's not any 2 purine and pyrimidine, but the specific one. And one key concept also is that in RNA, we have base pairings which are A and U, that's not a good U, A and U and C and G. Meanwhile, in DNA, we have A and T, apples on the tree and cars in the garage. So I'm not really sure why this is, but that's an important note for transcription and translation when we talk about RNA and base pairing. So since we're talking about this, let's talk about the differences between DNA and RNA. So DNA, RNA. Okay, this is going to be in blue. It's going to be in red. So DNA is made up of a double strand. So that means that there's one strand like this, there's one strand going like this. That's why it becomes a double helix. Meanwhile, RNA is single-stranded, so it's just like that. Single strand. DNA, as we said, has base pairs A plus T and C plus G. Meanwhile, RNA has A plus U, C plus G. Lastly, we have the sugar, which is deoxyribose, sugar. And here we have ribose, sugar. So yeah, those are important to know. And